Praised be Jesus and Mary. Yesterday, in some places and in some religious institutes, including my own, the feast of the betrothal of the Blessed Virgin Mary with Saint Joseph was celebrated, or the espousal. And we know, of course, that even if this isn't a feast in the general calendar, certainly there was this betrothal. We know about it from the account of the Annunciation. St. Matthew mentions it as well. But at the very beginning of the account of the Annunciation, we hear that the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph. So the virgin was betrothed. But the thing we need to understand about the betrothal is that in ancient Jewish society, a betrothal was already a marriage. It's not like a simple engagement like betrothal means today. But they were actually married. They hadn't solemnly celebrated the marriage. That would normally follow a year after the betrothal. But already legally they were married. They didn't normally exercise all the rights of marriage, but they had them. And we can see that from what Saint Joseph thinks about doing when he discovers that his wife is pregnant. He thinks that for somewhat mysterious reasons that he should not continue to live with Our Lady, even though he doesn't suspect her of adultery. He continues. He wants to continue, or he worries about continuing to live with her. And so he considers divorcing her quietly. So if he had to divorce her, or would have had to divorce her if he had chosen to do so, then obviously they must be married, because you can't marry someone you can't divorce someone who's simply engaged to you. So we see that there is a true marriage there according to the gospel, and also we see that the gospel speaking about their marriage and speaking also about both of them as parents of Jesus. Now, St. Joseph, guided by an angel who appeared to him in a dream, didn't actually divorce Our Lady, of course. He was told that it was the will of God that he take her into his house, and so they had the solemn celebration of the marriage. And because of that, their neighbors assumed that the baby was St. Joseph's. They didn't think much of it because the two were married. Ordinarily, the couple didn't have relations before the solemn celebration of the marriage, but if they did, it wasn't anything against God's law. But if we come back to the account of the Annunciation, we find something that needs to be explained there, which is the fact that Our Lady, when she answers the angel, she hears how she is going to be the mother of the Messiah, and she says, "How shall this be done? Because I know not man." There are various other translations that sort of interpret that. But she says, "I know not man," in the sense that a vegetarian says, "I do not eat meat." That she has no intention of having relations with a man. And so then we might ask, well, why did you get married? Because her resolve, which is traditionally understood to be a vow of virginity, doesn't seem very compatible with marriage. So, if what makes marriage is the consent of the spouses. So, it's not the fact that they have relations. So, otherwise, these people who have relations outside of marriage would be married by that very fact. It's their consent to marry. Not their consent to just any sort of relationship. Not merely their consent to love one another and live together. If that were so, then brothers and sisters who consent to do this would be married, but of course, that doesn't happen. So the consent is something more than just loving one another and living together. There's a consent that's specific to marriage, and without that, there's no marriage. So, what distinguishes marriage from other kinds of friendships, other sorts of relationships, is the right to the marital act, an act which is of itself ordered to procreation. Even if the spouses happen to be sterile, they can still carry out this act, which in itself is an act ordered to procreation. If you can't carry out that act together, then you can't marry, not because someone is being cruel to you, but simply because that's not what marriage is. So, the spouses in marriage give each other the right to request this act. So they have a duty to grant, to grant what is asked, and also, they gain the right to engage in this act together, so that, they can, we don't. It's not permitted by God's law outside of marriage, but only in marriage. So, if Mary is going to be faithful to her vow of virginity, then how can she consent to marriage? How can she give a right which she has no intention of granting? So it seems that Our Lady couldn't really marry, but the Gospel says quite clearly that she was married. So, what's the answer to this? And Blessed John Duns Scotus gives us the answer to this trouble. He says that the consent to the marital act is always given under the implicit condition if it is requested. You grant, you consent to doing this if it is requested. But Our Lady knew quite well, and was very sure, that Saint Joseph, who was a just man, who knew the will of God in this regard quite well, would never actually make that request. And so there was no difficulty in her consenting to them, or in her giving that consent. And so they were indeed both consenting and truly married, even though they both had the intention to live their whole lives as virgins. So, if this marriage was not for the purpose of having children together, then why is it that they did marry? A major reason is so that those who didn't know Jesus' true origin would at least think that he was born of wedlock. They wouldn't think that he was illegitimate. Imagine already if in Jesus' ministry, the mere fact that he was known as the son of a carpenter was a reason to reject him. Imagine if he had been thought of as an illegitimate child, how difficult it would have been for the Jews to accept him. And of course, Our Lady was saved from being stoned, because if you're pregnant and you're not married, then it's fairly obvious what's happened. Unless a miracle has happened, but Our Lady would be at great risk of being stoned. And even more importantly, say the Fathers of the Church, this marriage deceived the devil, because the devil knows the Scriptures very well. He knew that the Messiah was supposed to be born of a virgin. But he didn't think that Jesus was born of a virgin, because he was born of a married couple. So this gave the devil doubts. This is what St. Paul talks about when he says, "None of the princes of this world knew the wise and hidden plan of God, for if they had known it, they would never have crucified the Lord of glory." If the devil really knew, or if the devil was sure that Jesus was the Son of God, that he was the promised Messiah, that he was fulfilling all those prophecies, that he was the very one of whom Isaiah had prophesied that he would be a suffering servant, then he would not have crucified him, because that would have meant his defeat. But he didn't understand that. He might have understood it, but as it was, he was deceived, and so he foolishly had our Lord crucified, which is our salvation. Yet another reason for this marriage is so that Joseph would be Jesus' legal father. That makes Jesus legally the son of David, which is necessary for him to fit into the genealogy as a son of David. Of course, he's biologically descended from David on his mother's side through Our Lady, but from his father he has the right to be the heir of David. Saint Joseph is also, of course, important as a protector of Jesus and Mary, a protector in various circumstances, especially in the flight into Egypt. So he's the one who gets the family together, gets everything organized, and helps them to escape in the middle of the night. If there wasn't Saint Joseph around, well, then it's true that God could have saved them by miracles, but that would have been tipping his hand. Then he would have. Then the devil would have seen what was going on, wouldn't have been deceived, and wouldn't have quite so obligingly crucified our Lord. So, yet another reason is for Jesus, and this, an important reason, is for Jesus to be born in a normal family, because Jesus was born in a family in order to sanctify the family, in order to redeem the family. Everything that Jesus takes on, everything that becomes part of his life is reached by a saving influence, by his action as the Savior, as the Messiah. And so by being born in a family, by being born of a married couple, he sanctifies the family. Now, even every family, even those families that don't have both a father and a mother, but he sanctifies the ordinary form of the family, and from there sanctifies every family. Now, some people think also that that Mary and Joseph had a sort of second-class marriage because they never consummated their marriage. So does that make it a second-class marriage? Not at all. St. Augustine helps us to understand this. He says that if we want to look at a marriage, we need to look at what the three blessings of marriage are. And these three blessings that a marriage can have are offspring, faith, and the bond. So, offspring. So offspring is a blessing, at least, for most of history, offspring is recognized to be a blessing. Today, perhaps people don't recognize offspring as having children as quite a blessing. Married couples tend not to want many children, and by the time they realize their mistake, it's too late. They don't realize that God is generous with those who are generous. They don't realize the importance of having children also to support them in their old age. And so, unfortunately, they sometimes find themselves lonely. But and of course, to conceive children outside of marriage, offspring are a blessing particular to marriage. Not that it's impossible to have children outside of marriage, but to do that is cruel to the children because it deprives them of the security that only a family can give. Because the consent of the couples makes this lifelong bond, makes a lifelong bond, so that even when they no longer, even when at times it happens the couple no longer feels like staying together, still they're bound by their promise, bound by their marriage vows to continue, to keep trying. And so that gives the children the security of a family in which to grow up. Now, when St. Augustine speaks of faith as a blessing of marriage, he doesn't mean the Catholic faith, because he's talking about all marriages. He means the spouses keeping faith to one another, keeping faith to their marriage vows, their faithfulness, in other words. And this faith is, or faithfulness to one another, is certainly a blessing of marriage. And then also that bond that unites the spouses as long as they both live, which gives them and their children security. So, it's possible to reject that bond. That's what divorce does. But divorce can't break the bond. It can only cannot destroy the bond, because Jesus abolished divorce. There's no longer that exception that used to exist in the Old Testament. So until death does them part, they are bound in holy matrimony. Holy matrimony, especially when both spouses are baptized, then their marriage is a sacrament, and so that bond is a sacred sign of the bond that unites Christ to his church. Christ who, since Christ lives forever and his church lives forever, therefore, that bond between them is never broken by death, but continues for eternity. So, Saint Joseph and Our Lady had a perfect marriage because it had all of these blessings. So, as offspring, we recognize the Lord Jesus himself, the fidelity in that there was no adultery, and the bond because there was no divorce. So, it's true that they only had one child, but that child was all that they could want because that child was God. Because of their conjugal fidelity, explains St. Augustine, they're both deservedly called parents of Christ. Why is it that Our Lady speaks of St. Joseph as the father of Christ, even though she knows perfectly well he's not biologically the father? Because he's the father in virtue of his fidelity to her. He's the father in virtue of their marriage, by the fact that they're united in marriage. And so when Jesus is born into this family, then St. Joseph is his father, not biologically, but certainly truly his father. And St. Augustine also explains that virgin wife was rather a holier and more wonderful joy to her husband because of her very pregnancy without man. So even though Saint Joseph is not biologically the father of Jesus, nevertheless, in this is actually a greater sort of fatherhood, because in this way they become parents while still remaining virgins, and so they obtain that blessing of offspring in the most perfect way, a way which could only happen once in history for the parents of the incarnate Word. So therefore their marriage is the most perfect one, the marriage which is the model for every other marriage, whether it's spouses who unite to obtain the blessing of offspring, or those spouses, and there are some, who live their marriage in a virginal way in order to dedicate themselves to prayer or to a particular apostolate. Praised be Jesus and Mary.